able to respond to you. With the crowd this big, it may take a couple of minutes to get to the questions as they kind of come in bunches, but they will try to get back to you. We're going to kind of correlate common questions. Maybe if there's a part of the presentation that just had a resounding question, we'll follow up with those at the end, but we'll go ahead and get started. I will tell you quickly about myself. My name is Jim Laster. I am the regional sales manager for the Midwest, essentially covering the cold states and the Great Lakes. Been with Garmin just over 10 years. I've spent most of that time with the sales staff, and it's been an awesome run and really cool to see the things that Garmin have brought out, and none more surprising in kind of a great way than the GI275. So today what we're going to cover is an overview of the functions and capabilities. We're going to go over some of the hardware variants because from the pilot side it looks the same, but on the back side things change a little bit. We'll go over kind of what Garmin and third-party interfaces are approved, and then we'll go through kind of a product comparison because we're getting a lot of those questions up to this point already about how does this compare to other products that we have, just trying to get a better understanding of how that fits in there. And then lastly, we'll go over some other Garmin product updates that we've released recently. So here is the GI275 flight instrument. So the best way to really look at this is kind of a cut between avionics and an instrument kind of mixed together. So when I used to talk to people about the G5, I would say really get away from avionics ideas and think of it just as an AI, where this is kind of more of a step up from that. This does bring in, for credit, airspeed and altimeter and a lot of other things in there. So it's a good blend between an instrument and avionics traditionally. So it is a 3.125 round multifunction instrument, which will allow you to bring in an HSI, CDI, MFD, EIS, and standby capability. Touchscreen display with a dual-centric knob. That's important because the UI and the user interface is much easier. Even though it is a touchscreen, a lot of things are easier done with the knob, and the cool thing is you can use both. So this is compatible with Garmin and third-party autopilots. You'll find out shortly that when we design this, we really design this for almost any cockpit. We try to make this as universal as we could. It has a built-in wireless connectivity via Connect. It feels like these days now, we kind of have to have connectivity in everything, and that's really where everything's driving us, and there's room in here for that as well. Available for a 60-minute backup battery, which is awesome. We put some really kind of cool stuff in the way that we can access that, and a really nice thing to have on board. And then we're approved for a massive installation base as far as Part 23 airplanes classes 1 through 4, and this is even being discussed and being installed right now into Part 25 airplanes on an STC on a one-off level. So this product has got all of the classifications and certifications that it needs, and that's kind of the backbone for it. And this will even work from a single engine piston all the way to that Part 25 world. So let's kind of jump into it. First, the optimized user interface. We kind of talked about that, the dual-centric knob. So there's an inner knob and an outer knob. That's what dual-centric means. The reason why you want to know that is there's pages and chapters. So if you see on here, it says map, and then you see the little dots. That's how you go between the dots on the map. The big knob will move you from like a map to a traffic page or something like that. And then he also has got a button in there, push. And then if you want to look at the map a little different, you can actually use the touchscreen. So again, it's kind of an intuitive interface. You're like, oh, I want to move left or right. That all makes sense. And that's kind of why that's there. As far as the touchscreen interfaces, you can touch and hold, you can swipe, you can scroll, and the one that all of us are used to is the pinch and zoom. So it is really kind of a nice thing. The funny thing is, as I've shown this to other customers who turn it on, the first thing you hear is, oh, cool, oh, wow. And then the next thing they do is they touch the screen, and it behaves exactly as they expect. I usually don't say anything for the first few minutes, as they've already got, knee deep into the product, and I've already gotten most of it figured out, to be honest. So it is really intuitive. Here's what the menus look like as far as you go through the systems, and what it'll look like is when you get into more of the settings modes. Now, what does it look like in a panel is a great question. So this is kind of where the variants are coming in. So first and foremost, its base function of one of these is going to be just a base AI. So this is what it's going to be able to replace. So if you have an aircraft that had an AI, rollover on you, or you just don't trust that vacuum system as much anymore, and we're flying IFR and we need something that we can trust, this is a great digital replacement, and it's actually in the idea of being able to be back mounted. And the reason why that's important is that it'll keep the appearance of your panel the way it is, and you'll see pictures of that later here. So this is awesome, and the next step up is we can unlock synthetic vision now. So you can see SimViz here. You can also see 3D traffic, and everything that you would expect from our synthetic vision is here as well. So that really brings in a ton of additional situational awareness. And also the pilot, it just brings you kind of that warm fuzzy feeling, and without having to really hack up the panel or do significant investment in the aircraft. So what if we want to take credit for the rest of the instruments? We can do that now. We can bring in the airspeed and the altimeter, and then at this point, all you would need is the GI-275 here, and you can have it all from there. It does take a little bit of getting used to if you've not flown tapes, but that doesn't really matter for the 275 versus any electronic when you're used to flying a traditional steam gauge to getting this. But once you get on it, you're going to find that you love it, and there's so much more information right there, and your scan just really tightens up, and it's a lot easier to do that as well. Another thing is if we bring in a magnetometer, then I can give you heading as well. And if we bring Navigator, I can actually bring in an autopilot control as well as the instrument, of course, for shooting approaches and into the airports here. So it's amazing what you can really pack into one AI. If you really think about it, that is a ton of information off of one very small investment that you just tie into the rest of your aircraft. So integrated solid state AHRS. So that's kind of a foregone conclusion that we are a all digital AHRS. We can remove the aging vacuum pumps. We can save weight and maintenance expenses. So the good thing about this is when you remove that vacuum system and you get that out of there, the things that are traditionally nagging at your airplane, we can just remove altogether and get this in there. The GI-275 indicator can be used as a primary source for aircraft attitude, altitude, airspeed, and turn coordinator. That's a big difference between that and the G5, which has been asked a lot. With the G5, the only thing that you were allowed to take credit for was the attitude information, and that was it. So that's a big thing there. Another big one is we are compatible with Garmin and third-party autopilots, as this provides gyro emulation to a lot of the older autopilots that you guys might have in your airplanes today. We have optional synthetic vision, which includes the flight path marker, which is my safe spot here. If you look at the picture on the bottom here, you'll see the green circle with the little dashes on there aiming at an airport. That actually is a kind of a trend vector of where you'll be headed, and is amazing on crosswind landings, even better on any kind of instrument approach via ILS or LPV or any of those. It's just an amazing trend vector for you to put that green dot on the end of that runway, and that is your wind correction. That is where you're going to end up. It is just an awesome thing. We also have pilot selectable reference markers. What that means is airspeed. So you can put in VX, VY, VNE, all of those you can load on the airspeed side. And then also we have adjustable airspeed bugs, altitude bugs, heading bugs, which is obviously all the pilots really do enjoy that. So jump in here. Now, as far as the HSI, we obviously packed a lot in on that AI. So what can I do down here? I could bring in a state-of-the-art HSI. And it is really pretty awesome that things that we can do here is we can jump it right in as a primary HSI, and we also can support digital and analog navigation receivers. So we can do up to 2 GPS sources and 2 VHF, meaning 2 VORs, 2 LPVs, or 2 ILSs and 2 GPS, whatever. And we have it compatible for a lot of third-party selected notices as well. As far as the HSI map compatibility, this adds dynamic map with overlays for flight plans. And what that means is, if you look at the bottom HSI down here, you can kind of see the traffic. We're also going to be able to see some terrain in there. You can see the trend of the traffic, and you also see your overlay. But if you look at the bottom part of the screen, you're going to be able to see there's that CDI. We can tell that we're straight on course. And at the top of the HSI, you see kind of a pink arrow. that also means we're tracking the right direction. So the HSI map just gives you a ton of situational awareness if this is really your only map on board. So it is pretty great. We do have a built-in VFR GPS, which enables backup and direct-to guidance. In VFR aircraft, this enables a direct-to guidance. So what this means is you take off, and if we just need to fly direct from, let's say, Kansas City to Sydney, Nebraska, to go check on the Cabela's, you can draw that pink line and you can track on that the whole way out there. It does require a GPS antenna, but we have a couple different options for that, and we'll cover later. So that's the HSI. Now, as far as one of the questions we get a lot of is, what about a reversionary capability if I do two? If you select two of the AHRS units and install them as an HSI and an AI, you will get this seamless reversionary mode, which means if you simply lose the top one, you go right to the bottom. So it automatically reverts if something is, if electricity is lost there or something comes along those lines. However, it does require a dual AHRS equipment. So we'll cover some more of the variants here shortly. Yet again, one more thing that this thing can do is we have a different multi-function instrument version of the 275. This removes the AHRS, but what it does bring online for us is a lot of that great capability for just the map, and then you can also randomly bring that in with your AI, replace the rest of your instruments, and now you have a great map right next side to it. So this would be ideal for that. Some other things that we can do with the MFD is, obviously we talked about the map, traffic. So if you have on board either a GTX 345 or some of the Garmin traffic that's on board, even some of the third-party traffic, you can see right there, we'll be able to display that. You can touch screen, and that will be able to display the relative motion to you. And you'll look at the top where it says closure rates 41 knots, ground speeds 141, it even gives you the N number. So you have great situational awareness with this, and it's just one swipe of the screen away. Terrain, obviously that's important when it's important. There's a lot of approaches that this is kind of a really nice thing to add to have on board. And then the active flight plan, which is nice to see a good overview as well. And that's coming from the GTN and the WASP GNS units. And then weather, again, if you have that 345 on board, you can actually feed the ADS-B weather and traffic to this as well, which is awesome to see. And then get the Sirius XM as well. If you have a GDL69 on board, we can display that as well. Another really cool thing to have, this is kind of one of the unsung heroes, in my opinion. A lot of us that fly VFR, it's just nice to have that backup information about the waypoint. So for instance, if we're talking about an airport, I can tell you what the runways are, what the pilot control lighting is, what traffic it is, right from this box. It really kind of has that multifunction display and gives you all that great data right in there, and having just one less thing to carry around in the cockpit with you. For our friends in the bigger aircraft, we even offer a radar altimeter display, which is a great value for those guys, as this is quite a bit cheaper as an option when it's tied together. So again, just great. And the one thing that is kind of a home run for us is this allows us to bring in a CDI that is fully digital. And then when you are not using it as a CDI, we can use it as a map. So that great functionality that you have, you need it when you need it. And if for whatever reason you're not using it, we can use it on other things, such as if you have a traffic page on, you have the map page on, all that can be displayed there. So this does support a digital and analog navigation receivers. Again, we can do 2 GPS sources and 2 VHF, so 2 ILS, 2 VOR, or 2 GPS sources. Compatible with select third-party nav sources. And we do have access to all the MFD pages that I covered prior. So this is absolutely a home run for anyone installing one of our great GTN products. If you're putting those in, you're going to need a CDI to go along with that. And this is a home run because it gives you just one more map or one more display. We'll even work with our 2-inch navigators as we have coming out. If you're more on the value side and we're looking at like a 175, having that 2-inch navigator is awesome, but having another map to display something else would be great. Or if you have a 375 that's got the traffic and weather, that will all display on here as well. So you can really see these work in tandem and are such a great accompaniment to what we already have in the airplane. And not to mention, it's a great building block. If you decided that you wanted the 375 and you did that, this is a great thing to add on now to bring in just even more situational awareness. For our friends with the G500s and 600s, we can actually add this as a standby display, which has been really popular. And the one thing that is really unique for us, if you take a look at the display, it's not showing a standby, it's showing a map. And the reason why is we got certification done to allow us to use that display and that real estate as something useful for the pilot, as opposed to just another AI that you're looking at waiting for the one day you hopefully never use it. So now we have a functional use of our standby besides the thing that we hope we never have to use. Now, in the rare case that you may actually have to use it, it automatically reverts to what you need it to be. So it is awesome to have that in there, because you're investing in the aircraft, something that you can actually use and not just have something along for the ride. So, and also you'll notice right below there, the two blue USB ports, that actually we'll come back here in a second, but those are the Garmin USB chargers. And of course they are, in my opinion, the best out there, because they've got the dual Qualcomm, so you can charge your iPad and your iPhone, at full blast, so you're not worried about that. And also that helps us get databases and software into the 275 as well. So obviously the Garmin devices are going to be a little bit more smarter than your average bear. So with the advanced integration with the TXI displays, obviously you don't want to be setting the barrel, in multiple locations. So you just set it on the TXI and it'll automatically set on your standby. If you have a heading bug sync, altitude bug sync, airspeed sync, it's more than just a thing that is kind of annoying to do multiple times. If you do have a failure, your bugs are already synced. If they give you a heading correction and you're turning to that heading and something happened, the heading bug's already on the 275. So that's awesome. Same thing with the airspeed and altimeter, all that. If you're clear to an altitude, actually I just recently had a really good friend of mine flying just last week and had a lost comm, and he was on his way out, was climbing on his way out, and he couldn't remember if he got that altitude of 2,000 or 4,000, and having a presetted bug really helped him there. So it's just those little things, those times you really need something, that little extra really does help. So also compatible with a standby instrument for the legacy G500 and 600. A lot of guys haven't thought about this, but for the G1000, G1000XI, that is a perfect time to upgrade the standby. Garmin's lucky we have got access to a G36. It is a legacy G1000, and we're contemplating moving to the NXI, and that is absolutely a great time to bring in the 275 as that standby and to kind of complete that installation with an all new digital upgrade there. G3X Touch for certified aircraft, this can also be used, and then also third-party mechanical and EVIS displays. That has got a little bit more of a conversation around it, but that's something that the Garmin dealer can absolutely walk you through. So, and there's one more thing. We can even do engine gauges on this, which is a home run for us, and we're really excited about this. We have a way to bring in, I could tell you from my days of early flying with the 172, you look over and all you're seeing is your fuel gauges bounce from left to right, and you're like, well, I hope that's right. And you're just not fully confident about what's going on in that engine. This will take care of that. We bring it in that compact 3.5 inch or 3.125 inch display. We will be able to display as a primary use for a lot of these instruments that you just really didn't have a whole lot of confidence in. The good news is we didn't leave anybody out, and our friends that fly the twin engine airplanes can also use this as well. So it is really kind of a nice thing to bring into the airplane without having to hack up a whole bunch of installation time or hack up the panel altogether. Just a nice way to bring it in. So let's talk about what this can really do. And like I said, this is a primary engine gauge system, and you can replace the factory engine gauges, which is just awesome. Supports both single and twins, like we talked about before, but the catcher here is it's going to be a 4 or 6 cylinder Lycoming or Continental engine, which covers the vast majority that are out there. Twin engine aircraft, you will need to purchase 2 of the 275s, 1 per engine, which makes sense. And then the cool thing here is that we can actually start doing, when you get away from those old static gauges, getting into the digital, we can now display engine, fuel, and electrical data, i.e. if we start getting low oil pressure, we'll actually warn you to it instead of just waiting until it's critically too late. Also, we can utilize one of the GEA 24 or the 110, depending on what aircraft type you're in. What that is the GEA 110 is really designed for class 1, 2, and 3 aircraft, and that includes the airplanes that can go over 6,000 pounds. The GEA 24, which is the gray box on the left, is cleared for Class 1 and 2 aircraft below 6,000 pounds. So it's at your discretion of which one you want to use. A lot of things changed in the industry within the last few years. One of those being that we're allowed to use non-TSO equipment in certified airplanes. The GEA 24 is a non-TSO but certified device, and the 110 is a TSO box. That is the difference, and that's why the GEA 110 is allowed to use in Class 3 airplanes. The GEA 24 must be behind the firewall, and the GEA 110 can go in behind the firewall or in the engine compartment, which actually may save you considerable installation time as well. So it's just great to have the option for these. So your Garmin dealer will be able to do a custom quote for you, and will probably be leading you into a more precise landing for what you're going to be looking for in your particular case. I've seen even in the same type of aircraft, like in a 182 or in a Bonanza, they're the same models, even serial numbers close to each other, where they might have just two different missions and they suggest two different things because there's just different solutions for each aircraft. So let's talk about some of the features. We can do our EGT and CHT monitoring, which is awesome. And we can also do our lean assist. What that means is, in the old days, you just lean it back till you hear the cough and then give it 1/4 turn. That's a good old rule of thumb. But what this will do is bring in a digital lean assist, which will bring it to a specific temperature, which you can come back to. So, and then you can follow those guidelines per your POH. So it's a very precise way to go lean a peak or rich a peak, and you have that option for either. We can also do exceedance alerts. Those are installer configurable, or you can do pilot selectable. A friend of mine has got a really cool V-tail Bonanza, and that airplane is amazing. It runs around, screens around, does really well. But that engine tends to get a little warm. And the problem is if you don't catch it, before you get to 400 degrees, it's really tough to get that thing cooled down once you crest that. So, but as far as the operating manual says that you don't need to get a warning until you get to 410 degrees. Well, the problem is you probably need that warning at 390 degrees. So that's what you can do. You can have a pilot selectable advisory at 390 degrees. Hey, maybe I need to go a little bit more lean a peak here to get a little bit of heat off of it, and I can keep it below that 400 point. And you can do that before you get to the point of no return. And just because the book says one thing, all of us pilots know, each plane's a little different and different things work for different planes, and you can add those as a pilot selectable advisory as well. So, and if you find out 390 is kind of a nuisance alert, you can bump it up to 395 or move it around and dial it in the best you can. And that's something that you do not need to take back to the shop. But the ones that come from the POH will be installed per the book, and those will always be in there. So this is what lean a peak will look like. Sorry about that. You'll see where the leans are actually coming in. So here is also a fuel computer, as well as you'll be able to see the fuel estimate, the endurance and range that we have left in there as well. And then obviously the installer configurable lenses here. One of the great things, sorry, I was getting excited to talk about this, is on these devices, one of the things that Garmin produced that I think is probably one of the greatest why Garmin's is that once we have all of this amazing data that we can show you live on your GI 275, TSI, or whatever it is, we can actually wirelessly move that to your iPad. So why is that important? These are great displays, they are awesome, but there's a lot of times that you want to take a look backwards, right? So we are live streaming that data to your iPad. If on takeoff you were going up and you got everything, and you're running a little bit warmer and you're like, man, I felt like that something I might have missed or something else happened, you can go backwards in the flight that you're currently in, go back, and you can actually go back all the way to start and look at all the temps for your CGTs, EGTs, what your TITs were, everything in the exact flight that you're in. And then the cool part is once you touch the internet again, either your iPad or your iPhone goes back in and either touches Wi-Fi or LTE, we actually take all that data right into the cloud and you can review it on a computer. So I have a great customer that is based in Michigan. It's actually it's a set of twins. They both own, they both have their own set of families. They share the airplane. It's an A36. And one of the main reasons they went with this is because they wanted to have that availability to be able to view what's going on in history of the airplane. What I was not told was one of the brothers ran Rich a Peak and one ran Lean a Peak. And the Rich a Peak guy was mad at the Lean a Peak guy, and he wanted to catch that he was running at higher temperatures. So I didn't know this until I got the call from the Lena Peak guy that called me and said, hey, I don't understand how my brother can see all this. And lo and behold, this is in here. And what actually ended up happening was after this was in, they actually sent a lot of the data to their maintenance shop, and they noticed that it wasn't the Richard Lena Peak that was actually the problem. They were actually starting to get some pretty good carbon buildups in some of the back cylinders, and they caught it just because those temps were being higher the later that they were running. And they're like, that's not something normal. They took a look at it, and it's just raw data that was in there that somebody that has a good eye for it. Other people have used this where you're uncomfortable with the flight, you land, you feel like there's something wrong, you talk to a local maintenance person you're not 100% sure about, you can call your guy back home that you have that great relationship with and say, hey, go ahead and log in and look at all this data and tell me what you think, and try to get a second opinion remotely. Just an amazing thing to do. And this is a great why Garmin and why our Garmin EIS is so great. So because they're able to output that data and not have to go use data cards and get back to the airplane and do all this stuff. We just handle it for you. Speaking of the wireless, you'll notice that we can wirelessly move databases. So in the picture you're seeing here, if you look at that center GI275, it's showing you a status bar. That is the database wirelessly updating, which is awesome. So you're not required to take anything back and forth. You just need to have Garmin Pilot and have a paid subscription, and we will handle that for you when you originally turn the airplane on. And that will actually downfill to multiple GI275s if needed. And then when the airplane's on and you're out running around, we'll actually show your GPS position, your backup attitude information. So if you're running Garmin Pilot in that instance, you'll be able to use synthetic vision and your map as well. But that does require to have the 800 equipped GI275. And then also you have your database concierge that will wirelessly move those over. And that will even sync to your 375, your GNC 355, and your GPS 175, easy for me to say. And that does require the software version 3.1. So, and again, if you have an ADS-B source, like a GTX 345, we'll even stream that traffic and weather and all your EIS data, if installed correctly, right back out to your app as well. So if you really think about it, opening up that conduit to the iPad is huge. You get a ton of data right there. You get that big display from the iPad, and you can go from there. So we mentioned briefly the GSB15, which was our USB charger. So this is awesome. You can do software updates via a dongle in the back, or if you install one of these, you get a dual fast charging port up to 3 amp or 18 watts per simultaneously, which is awesome. Another really cool thing is it kind of have a halo lighting, which means it's easy to find in the dark. I don't know if you've ever tried to plug a USB charger in the dark, either at night or maybe where it's really shaded. It's tough, and it's nice to have those in there to see what you're aiming at. And these are actually can be used to update the databases. If you don't want to use the wireless, you can just use the GSB, and I can update that as well. So you can see that these are really kind of a clean installation. They are also back mounted along with the GI275, making it real a clean appearance for that. The database transfers are fast. They are quite a bit faster. They go through pretty quickly. Some other things that we can do are smart airspace. What that means is if we're in a 172 and we're not going to climb to 20,000 feet, we're probably not going to show you a whole lot of airspace that is way above you. Adversely, if we're in, like a Turbo Cirrus or something, and we're coming down the pipe, we're not going to show you any Class D airspace when you're up at 12, 13,000 feet. If you're well above it, we just show you the things that are necessary. And if you start a trend towards something like a Class B airspace or something, we'll actually bring that out and make it a little bit more noticeable. And it's just a way to clean up and declutter the screen from you. Our friends over in Europe, we can show the visual reporting points, which is nice, and then crew profiles. I'm lucky enough to have access to the Garmin airplanes. There's a lot of us that do. Not all of us have agree on the way things should be set up and what zoom levels and what colors and topos on or off. So the cool thing is we can have crew profiles. I touch the button and it resets everything to the way I like it, which is nice. So that's a lot of software changes and things were there. I'm going to go through a little bit more of the hardware side of what is different. So we did talk a little bit about having a building block system architecture. What that means is we can add one today, we add another one tomorrow, we can add another Garmin device later, and everything just keeps working. So the investment that you make in the 275 is more than just for today. That can be added to or supplemented in many ways as we go forward. We can even add up to 6 of these 275s in the same aircraft that we needed. 3 versions can be paired or various external components. They are TSO approved. That is a big deal. I'll show you a little bit later the difference in build between a G5 and a 275, and you might make sense more there. Available with a backup battery, which is awesome. It can be built right into the 275 to give you that capability. And then also we have an integrated GPS that does require a separate antenna, which is the one that you can see here, the GPS dash mount. That is you don't have to go through the outside of the airplane for that one. You can just start on the dash and it'll give you that basic VFR GPS. Now, if you have a 430, 530, or GTN or a 2-inch Navigator, that can feed the GPS to it, and it's not a big deal. You don't need it. The GMU-44, that is our magnetometer. The little brother of that is below it at the GMU-11. And depending on the class of aircraft, that will determine which one you need there. We talked about the GEAs and the GSP. The one that we did not talk about was the GTP-59. That's a mouthful. All that is the outside air temperature probe. So all of this will bring in all of the data that you need that gives you all the stuff that is in there. So you kind of pick and choose what's right for your aircraft installation. Not only is the GI-275 got variants, you also have options in what other remote LRUs that you can use for that as well. So again, the best thing I could suggest is when you talk to the Garmin dealer, just say, hey, here's what I want. Tell them the mission of the airplane and the mission of what you want to do, and they can go through and pick the right things for you and keep the maximum value for you. Now for the base GI-275, this is typically utilized as an MFD, EIS, and a CDI. Functionally, you'll be able to show all of those. To get the EIS, we need to bring in the GEA-24, the 110, and the engine sensors to bring all that data. Obviously, to show that, we have to be able to read that data. And then a backup battery is optional if you want for the map. So this unit, actually, the 275 base unit, you can purchase today from a Sporties or Aircraft Spruce or New View Technologies in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, if you're there, maybe next year. And they will actually be able to hand one over to these to you, and your AMP can help you install that, or your AMP can install for you, because this really is a fairly simple installation. Now, moving away from that is the built-in ADAHRS version. So this is the version that you need to go to a Garmin dealer, because there is more considerable installation with the built-in ADAHRS version. So typically, this is being as a primary AI or an ADI with a HSI functionality. So again, this has got the backup battery included. If you notice, the reason we're showing you the back of the units is that we actually had another board added on there, and we have Peter Stack that goes right into this. And then you'll see that we have more population on that side. So a step up from here is going to be the ADAHRS plus the autopilot. So what that does is this brings in an interface capability for many of the popular non-Garmin autopilot systems. And this can be a replacement for the KI-256. So for the guys that are flying airplanes with those in there, you understand how expensive that is to overhaul or replace. So the good news with this is if you decide to do this as a replacement, you're going to get the same functionality, and you will not have to add a GAD43 that is actually built into this GI-275, which is a home run. Saves on a separate LRU purchase. It saves on installation costs, and it's just a cleaner installation, and will do a great job of flying that airplane. And again, talking about building blocks, if you install one of these and later want to install a GFC 600, it will work beautifully with that as well. So no bad investment, good money spent here, and it's not something that you're gonna have to replace later. So those are the difference. So we have the 3 models, the base, the ADAHRS, and then the ADAHRS with autopilot. Those are 3 different variants. And then as far as the autopilot integration goes, the question we get all over the time is, we have GFC 600 support today, works great. GFC 500 support is anticipated for later this year. Our original intent was to have this kind of be a standalone product that works well with this. The GFC 500 was kind of a closed system, and that speaks a very specific type of data bus. The way they explain it to me, to break it down, is essentially GFC 500 speaks Chinese and the GFC 600 is speaking English, and they have to teach the other unit the other language, and that way it can communicate with that. And that makes more sense to me. I understand you can't learn a language overnight. So they're bringing that language verse into the GFC 500 model so that way you can understand and communicate with the 275. So with that work done, we're hoping to have that done later this year. And at that point, then you can replace the G5 and the 275. So the GI 275 8-horse with autopilot, these are the models that we do work with. The Benix King, M4C, M4D, which is a big one. You'll see a plethora of the Cessna autopilots are in here. Sperry autopilots, the STEC autopilots are also great in here. But the ones that a majority of our customers fall in are the Honeywell CAP 140s, 150s, 200s, and the KFC 150, 200, 225, even the 300. So we also have GFC 600s that are options for these guys as upgrades. But again, we're just trying to offer you options. So if you just have an AI that needs to be replaced, 275 is a great thing. If you have problems with the autopilot down the road, GFC 600 can be installed and just integrated beautifully with the 275. So again, just great investments. So as far as navigation integration, obviously we're going to work with our GTNs for the 750 and the 650, both the new XI series as well as the legacy series. We're going to work with our 2-inch navigators, the GPS 175, GNC 355, and the GNX 375, with our WAS 430 and 530 units, even with our GTR 225 and GNC 255 units, and even our friends with the old CNX 80 and the GNS 480. So those are the navigators that we can work with on the 275. And then kind of taking a little bit different cut at this, these are the 3 different versions of the GI 275. So at a high level, the base unit is a display only that will show you the MFD and optional EIS. The at-horse unit will be typically used as your AI or possibly an HSI. And then your at-horse plus autopilot is really built for your third-party autopilot interface. So the only reason you'd buy an at-horse plus autopilot is that you're replacing an AI that currently works with your third-party autopilot that needs that to have on board. So those are the 3 variants, and that's kind of the difference in models. Now, the question I get a lot is what is size, what's the comparison? So it is a 2.69 diagonal display. Okay, so it's your standard round instrument. Depth is 7.4 inches. I'll show you a picture of where the battery is later, but you can see that this is a pretty clean installation. It's not crazy long. It's going to be a nice compact installation with a back mount, which I'll show you more here in a second. But then I get the question about the G5. So what's the difference? Well, this is the difference between a non-TSO'd and TSO'd box, right? So we built the G5, an amazingly brilliant team in Team X here at Garmin, built the G5 originally as a backup to the G3X system for non-certified, and that was the intent. And those guys were smart enough to leave I/O in there, and they were kind of playing with some of the interfaces and allowed it to be coupled with the GFC 500 without ever knowing that was going to become a thing. So we've really maxed out the capability with the G5. Now, the difference is here with the 275, you can see that it is purpose-built to be a TSO. It's run through all of the testing that TSO requires, meaning when it gets down to temperature testing and the humidity testing and the voltage testing and perfect lightning testing, the one on the right has done all of it, and it is built to substantially fight back all of that. The one on the left is non-TSO. That is the difference. So really, at the end of the day, that's kind of when people ask why is there a price and cost. That's it. As far as the battery, the easy installation is literally unscrew it, plop it in, wire it up, and you're done to go. This is good for 60 minutes of attitude indication. So that is there. The reason why it is easy to install is that you will have to replace the battery eventually, and that is something that is fairly easy to do. Unfortunately, that is something that you cannot do yourself, but a shop can do for you. So as far as certification and availability, the FAA STC certified, we're ready to go. It is available today. We've been shipping for a couple months now. The AML will go into class 1, 2, and 3 aircraft. Class 4 is approved as a standby or an MFD, and a full AML can be found on our product page. So if you have a question about if your airplane can be found or not, just go to that website. You can go from there. Our designed assurance levels. What that means is when we do our testing, when I've talked a lot about TSO testing, there's different like hurdles you have to cross, and there's a difference between level C, level B, and level A. And every time that you go up in that ladder, it requires a lot more testing and is a lot more stringent as far as errors. And that is what we designed this box to clear every one of those hurdles. Is just an incredible box. So here's the slide you guys have all been waiting for, I'm sure, which is pricing. So the class 1 and 2 model for the CDI MFD starting at $31.95. That's the base unit. If we're going to add the attitude indicator just to bring in the AI, it's $39.95. If you have that third-party autopilot and you need that integration, for $49.95 you get that. If we need just an HSI, we can get that done for $42.95. And for EIS, we're starting at $52.95 to bring in that electronic engine instrumentation. So just a home run. Class 3, you can see that those are for the bigger airplanes. The prices are right there. But for the baseline pricing, we've done everything we can to keep the cost down and keep the value up. And again, a big difference between this and the G5 is Part 23. Again, we're cleared from Class 1 to Class 4, single and twin engine pistons, as where the AML only will cover GA aircraft under 6,000 pounds. The functions, we could be an AI, HSI, MFD, CDI, EIS, primary altitude, primary airspeed, primary altimeter. In the G5 world, it can be an AI or an HSI, and that's it. And it is only secondary for altitude and airspeed, meaning you have to keep those round gauges on board. As far as controls, it is touchscreen and a dual-centric knob. For the G5, it's just one single knob. So there are a lot of pushing and twisting to try to get the chapters and things that you need. Synthetic vision is optional on the GI-275, as with the G5, that is not an option. Autopilot interfaces, we are allowed to work with much more third-party autopilots and have a much more diverse a way to handle third-party autopilots, meaning we can do some of the gyro emulation, as where the G5 is kind of really only heading out in GPSS, and that's it. And then the price is $31.95 versus $22.94. So that's a question that we get a lot of. That's why we spent the time to build this out, just so you guys can fully understand the differences. Now, TXI compared to the 275s. If you do a dual 275, we can have an AI and HSI for $82.90. If you decide to add that MFD functionality, the price jumps to $11,480, $11,485. If we decide to go with a full 4-pack, then we're up to $16. And then you'll notice the G500 will actually bring in additional installation and some other things in there, but the cost for that is $20,000. So let's do a quick summary. I know we've covered a lot, and I feel like there's a ton in here. So let's do this. We are a 3.125 round instrument that can either be an attitude indicator, an HSI, a CDI, an MFD, EIS, and even a standby. It is touchscreen. It does have dual-centric knobs. We are compatible with Garmin and third-party autopilots. We have built-in wireless connectivity via Connect. We're available with a backup battery for good 60 minutes, and we're approved in tons of airplanes. So and we're good for both single-engine airplanes all the way up to our twin-turbine fronts. So now is the time for some questions. So we have a couple of questions here that are common that I will be able to answer. You can go ahead and fire off questions, and our team will relay those back as fast as we can. But here, what is the installation difference between a G5 and a 275 is a common question. The answer is they're very similar. As far as you can mount the exact same magnetometer, you're going to be piping into the pitot-static system the same if we're doing an AI replacement. And the main difference is the 275 is going to be back mounted, which means you're not going to have to cut into, like if you have a plastic overlay, you can back mount that, as where the G5 mounts from the front side, and you'd have to cut that plastic overlay, or you're going to do the flush mount, which does actually make you cut into the panel and may cost a little bit more actually to install the G5 than the 275 in some cases. So what GI 275 will I need for the GFC 500? I get this question a ton. So do you need to buy the model with the autopilot version? No. So if you were planning on a GFC 500 installation with a 275, when we get that complete, the GI 275 that you're going to need is just the middle version of the Adahars GI 275. We get this question a ton. Can we upgrade a 275 base unit to autopilot? No is the answer. They're two different units. And if you remember me showing you the backs, there literally is different boards in there. That's not something we can do a software upgrade, or that's not something we can do a quick changeover. Those are two different units. And is there a trade-in program? The answer is no, not from Garmin. But that might be something that your local Garmin dealer can handle. The G5s are still very popular. There is a good place for those out there. And I think if you want to upgrade your G5 to a 275, just consult the local dealer and see what he'll get for you for trade, and he may be able to take care of that for you. Next, what do I need as a standby if I buy dual GI 275s? It's a good question. And if you install both of the Adaharsh units and have the battery installed, you're actually covered there, and you're good to go with those. The next one is, can I replace the battery myself? I think you may have heard me say this before. The answer is no, you cannot do it by yourself, but the good news is you are not required to do this with a Garmin dealer. If you, like, for instance, an annual is coming up in 5-year mark or something, they can just do a quick replacement. It's not a big deal. And they will be able to legally sign off that they did that for you. Can a GMU that was installed with a G5 or G500 be shared with a 275? So the question I normally get is, I already have a GMU on board. Do I need to get a second one if I want to get heading on my GH275? The answer is yes. You will need 2 GMUs if you want heading on your standby. If you had a G5 on before and you're just replacing it, you can leave that in where it's at and just wire that into your 275. That's not a problem. But if you're trying to share one, that won't work. The last one here is, what do I have to update? What do I have to do to update the databases? We briefly covered that. Either you can do that wirelessly via Garmin Pilot, or you can do it with a GSB 15, which is plugging it in that way as well. And you could do that. And the last thing is, are you required to update databases? The answer is no. There is no requirement to have these things updated. However, to get everything to work together, you're going to really want that. A couple other questions that have been kind of more in the common, hold on one second, get these sent over to me, is, will this unit talk with a King autopilot? That was one of the questions that has come up a ton, and the answer is yes. I covered the models earlier, from the 100, 140, the caps into the KFC, 200, 225, 300, all of those are included. Can multiple 275s eliminate the need for a vacuum system? In most installations, yes. It depends on other components in the aircraft. Like if you're operating, let's say, a 340 that's got boost that needs vacuum, no, because you need the vacuum for that. But if you're operating like a 182, yeah, there's no reason why you can't. Do maps come with a GI 275 automatically, or is it an add-on, meaning requiring an additional purchase? So when you receive the unit, it will have a database in it, but the database will be dated as the day that it left our warehouse or our manufacturing facility. So if you're cool with flying with an old sectional, that's what's in it. So obviously it won't know anything until you tell it anything differently. So it will fly around with that base map and that airport information. It won't expire on you or anything like that. So we're good from there. The one other thing I wanted to bring out is we just recently had a software update. It was just this past week. And why I'm bringing that up is we're constantly bringing out new software and trying to improve the products. And there's a litany of things that we can bring to this eventually, but we just have to take it little chunk by chunk. But our first software upgrade came out with 2.05, which just came out just recently. Had some simple fixes in there, but we're going to continually to build on that. And another thing I get a ton of questions on is what will this look like? So if your panel, it looks like the one on the left in your traditional plastic overlay, or I've had a ton of Warbird guys really love this. The one on the right is a P51. And the reason why is they don't want to like cut it all up and make it look like a big display or TV in there. So what ends up happening is you can plop that in and it keeps that aesthetic look that you want in the Warbird. Or if you look at the left, we don't hack up that plastic overlay where it looks terrible. You know, we can simply just drop them into the backside. And that's what that back mount really does for us, is keeps that official original look. The other thing is for our old G1000, or for our G1000s and for our G500s, or even the TXI displays, those are perfect times to go and upgrade those as well. Put those on and just drop those in. It takes the exact same location. And then all of a sudden you have a full digital backup AI, which is awesome. If you're looking for some more information or want to review some of the stuff I covered here, the website to see this is garmin.com/GI275. There you will find the PALS guide, quick reference guide, the AML, which is the approved model list. If you have a aircraft that might be kind of more of a one-off, then you want to go check that list to make sure it's on there. And then it'll also have autopilot compatibility there as well. So go ahead and keep firing those questions off. I'm going to cover a couple more of the recent Garmin updates here. We recently announced, just within the last few weeks, the new Era 760. It is an all-in-one aviation portable. It is a 7-inch bright sunlight labelable display. It's got both IFR and VFR charts in it. It can display weather and traffic. It's got a built-in AHAR sensor into it. We've got some helicopter-specific wireware information here as well. We can do Wi-Fi capable for wireless internet, weather, as well as automatic data downloads. We can integrate with select Garmin avionics, and it's got a 4-hour battery, which is pretty awesome. And with this box comes the unit, the cradle, AC adapter, everything you would need in there. Sold separately would be a yoke mount and a hardwire kit. The reason why I bring that up is if you want to bring this into the cockpit as a portable device, but that is kind of mission built to be in the airplane, that's what the hardwire kit is for a price of $15.99 is a great value. And we'll be shipping that here in a few weeks in late May. We also announced the new GTN XI series. This is our 4th generation of GPS navcoms. This is a new modern design with faster processor, sharper displays. Looks very similar to the GTNs that we had previously, but this will allow you to do a direct slide-in compatible for the legacy GTNs, as well as fly approaches down to 200-foot minimums, which is awesome. Again, hundreds of installations of these are going in, as well as with a huge AML for this as well. I have a lot of questions about pilot training. We have a world-class pilot training group here. They really have built an amazing team over there. Jeff Hoeing is the captain over there, and they've done a really good job of bringing in some really qualified people. We do have a free PC simulator for the GTN, a free GTN trainer app on the iPad. We've got some online essentials that is a great way to learn. We even have instructor-led training, and I can't plug that enough. If you come here to Olathe, whenever that's possible again, you guys can sit in a classroom and really learn hands-on with the pros here at Garmin. And I fly roughly about 100, 125 hours a year, and I'll still ping those guys with questions just because they're great CFIs, good minds, so good dudes. You could visit flygarmin.com for training and for more information there. Great services. And since we're kind of all in this new pandemic world that we live in, we're actually offering new webinars, and you can sign up for those on garmin.com/aviation webinars. And that'll go over the pilot training for the autopilots, for tips and tricks on GTNs and G1000, GTN follow along, scenarios of pilot training. All that is great stuff, great value, and really they've done a great job with that. So that's just a great tool for us as you're getting adapted to the Garmin products. So new current promotions. So this is a big one. Just announced, meaning I think probably today, we are actually going to bring in a super aggressive rebate of $1,000 off if you buy a GI275 base unit with a GEA24 or 110. You receive $1,000 off. This is really our intention is to get the safety of those aircraft that have kind of those aging engine gauges. Let's get these in there and let's get these guys going with just great data, right? Let's get precise oil pressure, precise oil temps. We can get you cylinder head temps, EGTs, all of that. And now we're saving you a bundle of money. Twin engines can even play in. You can get $1,000 per engine off, which is awesome. And this is available through the end of July. So this is just our way of trying to get a little bit of momentum behind that class of aircraft to get going. And again, these are the models that you can purchase and have your AMP install or your AI. Or again, reach out to the Sporties, Aircraft Spruce, or the guys out in Oshkosh if you guys are planning to go back out there. So, and to learn more, just go to aviation.com/aviation promos, and all of our promos live there. It's a good place to come and check in and see what's going on. Also, we have a GPS Navigator with CDI combo. You save over $1,000 on the installation of a new 2-inch Navigator. along with one of the legacy GI 106Bs, and that includes the GPS 175, GNC 355 for the built-in comm radio. So pretty awesome. Good rebate there as well. Again, more information on the website for you. And something that's coming to end here pretty quickly is the upgrade for your GNS to a GTN. So you can receive up to $3,000 off for sending us your old GNS, and we will give that to you with your new GTN XI units. This will expire May 29th. My expectations are this deal will end and will be gone. So if this is something that you're looking forward to or have been trying to get done, I would act on that pretty quickly. So appreciate that one. Right along with that, we're ending the TXI upgrade program from the G500 and G500H into the TXI line as well. And if you have enablement cards, they'll be grandfathered in on the new ones. So they just need to come back with the display. We'll send you out the new display and new enablements for those. Again, that ends May 29th. So here quickly, if you were either one of those camps, I suggest you to call a Garmin dealer and get that going. One last thing I want to talk about is our aviation supports. Even in the times that we're in right now, these guys have been hitting a home run. They've been battling from home, helping us get everything we can. We have global support offices in Olathe, Salem, Southbury, UK, Germany, Austria, Singapore, China. So literally worldwide support, 24/7 AOG support. We have guys that are dedicated to fleet teams, our OEMs. We even have guys that are trying to help guys put in experimental systems. We have pilot operation support. That's actually where my career started here at Garmin. I answer the phone here. And I can tell you everyone over there has got a private pilot's license. They know what a VOR is. They're based here in Olathe, so they all have an accent similar to mine. Probably don't talk as fast, but are good there. Maintenance and pilot training, which we talked about before. All of those guys are just great. We've been voted #1 for 16 years in a row from AIN and ProPilot, and we're super proud of that. And those guys do just a great job. So appreciate that. Questions are still coming in. We're coming up against the end of the time clock here for 11, but we're going to stay online and keep answering questions as we go. And I appreciate everybody's time, and keep the questions coming. We're going to keep rolling along, and we will go from there. And thank you guys so much for your time. Have a great day.